What's up, y'all? What's good? Welcome to the What Up Doe Show. It's your boy Dame D, and I am back with another one. What's good, y'all? What's good? Happy Thursday, happy Wednesday to everybody, I should say. Yep. Day after Cinco de Mayo. Hopefully, everybody is having a great day today. Just want to come in and talk a little bit of Cleveland, Detroit game one talks. And then watching the Knicks game too in the background. You may hear that in the background too for a little bit. Really good Philadelphia, New York Knicks game going on right now. Game two. New York jumped all over Philadelphia in game one. This is game two. Philly is actually doing a pretty good job without Noel Embiid out there tonight. So it's a pretty good game. But yeah, I'm gonna wait for a few people to jump in before we start our conversation about Detroit, Cleveland. Game one, which is a really good night from Detroit. So I'm just waiting on a few people to jump in, and then we'll start tonight's show. So until then, I'll just talk a little bit about this New York Philadelphia game. New York is looking good. New York has surprised a lot of people this year. Bronson is having a great series, which, like I said, I expect for Detroit and New York to meet up in in the next series, Eastern Conference Finals. But before I get started, let me make sure you guys can hear me. Let me make sure my volume and everything is good. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I can be heard. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure. Okay, we can be heard. So there we go. Let me get out of here. So yeah, man, just waiting on a few people to jump in. And as you guys jump in, I need for you to like, comment, and make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. When you share, to also share. When you share, it makes my content get out there so others can look at the content, and others can see it. But what up, though, to everybody out there? Like I said, happy Wednesday to everyone. Today's the day after Cinco de Mayo. Hopefully, everybody had a great night today. Hopefully, everybody is with us and joining us. Know a lot of people was out drinking last night. A lot of people are probably hungover from a night of indulging in drinking and partying. But yeah, it's a great New York game tonight. Philadelphia is without Noel Embiid. You got the number 7 Philadelphia against the number 3 spot New York. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so come here. So yeah, got a little Damon in the background, so you're probably hearing. But yeah, like it's a really good Philadelphia game. I just want to come on for a little bit and talk about a little Detroit Cleveland breakdown talk. So I'm just waiting on a few people to jump in, and then we'll go in and start the conversation. But until then, like I said, I'm watching a great Philadelphia New York game right now. So how was everybody at Cinco de Mayo last night? And a lot of people is probably watching this New York Philadelphia game, which is a good game. But I'll just go ahead and start up, give my thoughts on last night game. It was a really great game, man. I'm gonna start with the stats. And I'll start with the defense, man. The defense, they did their jobs. They held Cleveland to, I'm not going to say a low, but we almost held them to under 100 points. And normally when you hold a team up under 100 points, that's pretty much a victory. Which we got that victory. But we were able to hold James Harden. And I'm gonna go to the stats. We were able to hold Harden and Mitchell, to a pretty minimum game. Harden ended up with 22 points, and Donovan Mitchell ended up with 23 points. But the main thing and the main talks are today is the turnovers from James Harden. That's one thing that I talked about with Kay during that Orlando series. He had a lot of turnovers that led to points. And that's been a talk of today, with the turnovers that James Harden had in game one versus Detroit. That defense, man, that sometimes when you match up against a great defense, it'll lead teams to having a lot of turnovers, and I spoke about that, with K against Orlando. He was having a lot of turnovers that led to a lot of Orlando points that should have not led. And I talked about that, on a few times, where Cade was having a bunch of turnovers and it was leading to, points off of turnovers, what led to, victories for Orlando, so and that's why I'm talking about game one with Harden, with the turnovers that he had against Detroit in game one. 7 turnovers, and all 7 turnovers led to points. That's 21 points just alone off of Harden turnovers, and that right there, will lose you a game alone just with all the turnovers. You know what I mean? So that's the main thing. And like I said, and it's almost like the coach saw my content about the game where I was like, he got to be able to get in there and talk to Cade about the turnovers, because he came out this game, did not turn in game 7 in Orlando, did not have that many turnovers. That game, and then game 1 versus Cleveland. I have to go and look at the box scores for that too, but like I said, and then one of the main things I want to talk about too, man, is your boy Tobias Harris. He's definitely been holding it down for Detroit. Without him, we probably would have been out of there in the Orlando series in game 5. He's really been holding the team down. A lot of people, and we don't really have a number 2, but he's definitely been our number 2. He's been all around offensively and defensively. Without Tobias Harris doing that thing, we would not be where we're at. So my thing is, man, our bigs play good. And the main thing that I love about what in game 1 versus Cleveland, we were able to hold their center. And give me 1 second. And I forget his name. It'll come to me when I'm looking it up. And I believe it's Allen, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm trying to look up, trying to make sure that I'm correct. Because we were able to pretty much hold him, to a minimum low. I think he only had something like 3 rebounds, and I'm trying to get to it. Okay, yeah, there it is. James Allen, he only had 2 points and 3 rebounds, and that's big, us not really having a big center in our center in Durant. He's a power forward that's playing center, kind of like what Ben Wallace did for us, with the Pistons back in those, with the go to work Detroit Pistons, bad. I'm not going to say bad boys, but with the go to work Detroit Wallace Pistons, I should say. So he's a power forward playing the center position. But yeah, to me, that was one of the key things is holding that big man to 2 points and 3 rebounds. And we contained Mobley. Mobley had 14 points. And he had a pretty decent game, 9 rebounds. But the main thing is we were able to contain Harden and Mitchell at the same time. We both kept them to a minimum. So, it was an all-around good defensive game by Detroit. And I just want to go, I'll talk about a little bit about Detroit stats. Tobias Harris, he had 20 points, 8 rebounds, 2 turnovers. Cade only had 4 turnovers, which he's getting turnovers down. And I talked about that a lot. The turnovers will cost you a game, and you see what it cost Cleveland. But Amir Thompson, he had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. And that right there alone, man, it was an all-around game. Your boy, and I said our guards had to play big, and they turned up big and they played big for us in game 1 versus Cleveland. Duncan Robinson, he ended up with 19 points. He was 7 of 12 shooting. 5 of 8 from 3-point. So it was a good all around. Our guys coming off the bench. Stewart, he had 6 points. Holland, he had 6 points. Green, he had 3 points. But everyone contributed. It was an all around game. So my question leading up into game 2, how do you think Cleveland will come out? Because we have the advantage. We're at home. We have Cleveland. We got them on the ropes right now. I'll say we got them on the ropes. And it's Cleveland who's going to have to adjust to the matchups, because we went out there, we played big. We were able to hold both of their superstars to a minimum low. And our guys did, like I said, it was a team effort by Detroit, and I want to give my hats off again to Tobias Harris. He's been playing like a 15-year veteran, like how he should, but actually he's been playing like a young up and coming, superstar. And that's how he's been looking out there, so I think we found our number two, for this season, for this upcoming year playoffs. So we don't have to worry about finding a number two, because we found that in Tobias Harris. He's been having a great, playoff around, a great round one, and so far great round two. So long as Tobias Harris can continue putting up the numbers and doing what he's doing, we'll be all right. And then we just have to continue to just feed off of what Cade doing. Cade is basically turning into a superstar in front of us. Once he get that dog in him, and Cade to me, he's right there, but he just got to get that killer instincts in him, and what I mean by that is he has to be a little bit more aggressive going to the hole, putting that motherfucker ball in their face, dunking it down. And that's what I mean. Once he get that killer instinct, that dog in him, he'll be unstoppable. You know what I mean? And we'll be able to go to that next level. But game two, I think they're going to try to key in more on trying to double down on Cade, trying to do a little bit more traps. Harding is definitely going to have to watch the turnovers. That's going to be a big thing, man, in turnovers. So therefore, my thing is I think he's going to be playing a little, I'm not going to say timid, but a little cautiously. That may even lead into, a lot of missed shots. You know what I mean? So the comment section is definitely open. I need for you guys to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Just like I said, just having talks about Cleveland, Detroit game one breakdown leading up into game two. In this New York, Philadelphia game, it's a really good game. So I don't know if you guys are, most of you guys are probably watching that game right now. It's a really good game, and Philadelphia is actually doing their thing and hanging in there without their superstar Noel Embiid. Yep. So yeah, man, I just want to come in a little bit and chop it up and talk about that. I'm still getting everything adjusted, getting adjusted to my new mixer, trying to make sure my volume and everything is good. So I want to interact with you guys. I wanted to wait to a few people jump in and chop in and hear you guys' opinion about that Detroit Cleveland game. I had a lot of Cleveland fans in here, the other day before game one, and so I'm trying to wait and see if we can get a lot of those Cleveland guys to come in here today and talk about game one, and get a little bit of conversations about what they think will happen in game two. But this is a really good game. Philadelphia 81, New York 82, third quarter. Yep. So how's everybody night going tonight, man? It's a good night. Great night. Another great night again for NBA basketball. Your boy Bronson, he's been doing his thing. But tonight, Philadelphia's been looking good. That defense been out there, man. They've been smothering the ball. And they holding it down. Yep. So give me your thoughts, man, on like I said, I was waiting on a lot of those Cleveland fans that were, in the comments on before game one started. I just want to hear everybody's thoughts and opinion on that. The Pistons played a really good, great game, all the way around defensively, and they did their thing offensively, man. Tobias Harris, man, to me, he's been our MVP. He's been holding it down. He's been on top of his things. He's been more like the superstar, of the team. Cade just got to get that dog in him. Once Cade get that dog in him, he'll be unstoppable. Okay. New York done took the lead. They up by 3 minutes and 12 seconds left in the third quarter. You got the number 7 seed, Philadelphia down 0-1 to New York in its second series game, game two. But it's a very intriguing, very good game. Philadelphia is without their superstar Joel Embiid, but they do have their other superstar out there, and he definitely needs to step up and play big. To keep them in this series. Because I don't think they can go down 2-zip and think that they could. I'm not going to say think that they cannot win this series, but it'll put them in an even bigger deficit trying to win this series, I should say. But Paul George got to step up and do his thing, man. He's a veteran. He's been in situations like this before. Hmm. See, there we go. So they just gotta, just play Philadelphia basketball. But yeah, man, I'm not gonna hold you guys up too much longer. I just want to come in and just give my thoughts on that Detroit um, Cleveland game 1 series matchup, man. Everybody did their thing. We were consistent all the way around defensively, offensively. We were able to make Cleveland, meaning James Harden, commit 7 turnovers that led to a lot of points, and which led to a Detroit victory. It was a good game, man. We're definitely, we're definitely, we definitely, um, we definitely won a matchup game in game 1, I should say. And that's what it's about in the NBA. It's all about matching up. It's all about exposing your matchups. That's just like in that round that we played with Orlando. That was definitely was a series about matchups. In that series, what I love about that, they took us to game 7. It woke them boys up, and it brought that dog out in everybody. So and it showed in that Cleveland game last night. We were ready for what Cleveland had. Um, we were able to, shut that lane down. We forced Cleveland to be jump shooters. And most of all, that's what they did. They forced those guys to be jump shooters. We did not allow those guys to attack. We did not allow them to get in the penalty. It was a good game overall, offensively and defensively for everything. In my opinion, what I want to see going forward is trying to get Durham a little bit more involved offensively. You know what I mean? And then once that happened, leading up into the Eastern Conference Finals, man, we'll be all the way ready. Once we get Durham a little bit more active offensively, um, we'll be ready for we'll start getting ready for these big boys out west. Because really that's what's going to do it. Our big is going to have to play big, especially if we make it to the finals. Because it's big boys out west, and you have to play big. So Durham really is a power forward that's really oversized by by most of those centers that we'll be seeing out west if we make it once we make it to the finals. So so going into this next game, I want to see Durham get a little bit more involved offensively, and let that young boy Thomas dominate and help out on the doubles, and just look more be more defensively minded, I should say, and take a little bit more pressure off of Durham and keep Durham out of foul trouble. Because that's going to be the main thing. If it's just trying to keep him out of foul trouble, trying to keep keeping us out of the penalty, I should say. But for the most thing, man, I want to give my hats off to the coach. They did their thing. They were ready for game 1. We did not let Cleveland come out like how we allowed Orlando to come out in game 1. And still game 1 to take home court advantage from us. We were what we were supposed to do. We won game 1. So now we got to continue to hold serve and guard that home court. Because only thing Cleveland has to do is just steal one game, and they'll be right back in it. So, we did what we were supposed to do in game 1. So we have to go out and continue for game 2 and did what we did in game 1 and game 2, I should say. But it was a great matchup, man. Overall for Detroit, we were balanced all the way around. So look, I don't have anything else more to add to that. Like I said, game 3 is tomorrow. It's a quick turnaround this round, which is a good thing for Detroit, because I think that's what had Detroit a little off balance and a little laxico in that Orlando series in game 1. They came out swinging and we wasn't ready for that, but we woke up. They woke us up for that series. We're ready. We're looking like Detroit basketball. Like I said, I just want to see Durham get a little bit, more physical offensively. And I want to see Cade get a little bit more offensively, driving into the rack, being aggressive, getting the teams into penalty, getting Cleveland into the penalty early. And that's what we have to, and that's what superstars do. Superstars get teams into the penalty early, and stay at that free throw line. And that's what Kane got to do, and it almost seemed like the coach heard what I said in that game 6, game 7. K have to limit those turnovers, and he has to be aggressive and put teams in the penalty, and that's exactly what happened in that Orlando series. And he continued that, in game 1. In game 1 of that Cleveland series. So, look, I don't have anything else to add. I just want to come in for a little bit, give my thoughts on that Detroit-Cleveland game, man, because you had a lot of people, underestimating this game, Detroit, this number 1 seed in Detroit. So I just, want to come in and put a little respect on it, for those Cleveland fans who, who had a lot to say before the tip-off and before that game 1. You know what I mean? So, but, it's all good, man. It's all fun in sports. I know it's going to be a battle when we go down there to Cleveland. It's going to be loud. It's going to be the same thing, but that's what it's about, man. It's about, fun in sports and just having a good time, as a fan, I should say, with the teams, man, it's all about being aggressive, putting that dog in, and that's what K has to do, man. He has to be that dog, that alpha. And once he get that mindset, that you that alpha, that, no one can touch you, that you drive into the hole every time, and you're not going to be stopped until they foul you and you make those refs blow that whistle. That's the mindset that K needs to have. And once he get that, he'll be all right, man. He'll be able to take it up a notch. He'll be able to probably get 5 to 10 points more once he get that dog in him. And that's what it's about, man. And I want to say what up, though, to everybody out there on Facebook. What up, though, to everybody out there on Instagram. What's up, everybody on YouTube? And I would appreciate all my people out there on Facebook. Come over to my channel on YouTube and make sure that you hit that subscribe button. We're closing down on 1,000K subscribers, so please help your boy out. Hit that subscribe button. It's a big goal. That's going to be reached on your, for your boy. So I appreciate if you guys go over there on my channel, hit that subscribe button. It appreciates, it helps the channel grow. And it's a goal of mine that I'm going to be hitting soon with you guys' help. But look, I don't have anything else to add. I just want to come in. Like I said, I want to come in and see who wants to talk it up and chat about that, that Cleveland, Detroit game 1. We had a lot of Cleveland fans who had a lot to say about that, so I just wanted to see, if they were still around, if they want to have, a quick conversation about that game 1. That's all. Detroit did their thing. They held it down, man. We were consistent. The defense, looked like Detroit basketball, Detroit defense, and they did their thing, man, and I'm proud of them boys. We were able to hold Cleveland superstars to a minimum. James Harden, I believe, 22 points. Here, let me go back. I don't want to be mistaken. Donovan Mitchell, he had 23 points. James Harden, 22 points. So, we did our thing, man. We were able, to hold off the comeback that they had. We were able to sustain our lead, and it's just a good thing overall, man. I really pretty much covered everything. The main focus for Cleveland tomorrow night is going to be the turnovers and what everybody was talking about today with James Harden with the turnovers. And that was the same thing, like I said earlier. We had that same issue with Cade. He was turning the ball over like crazy, and I don't really think no one talked about that. I think I was the only one really talking about that. When you're putting up big numbers like 30 and 40 a night, sometimes, the coach will overlook that, but that was costing us, that cost us a few games in those turnovers, in my opinion, and the coaching staff did a great job. They got them boys together. When we went down 3-1 and we were able to come back and win 3 straight games, where a lot of people counted us out. A lot of people didn't think we were not going to be able to come back and do it. But I knew once once we stopped the turnovers, man, and just concentrated on, Detroit basketball defense and, and passing that ball around. And the main thing too, Tobias Harris, man, he's been everything for Detroit in that Orlando series and thus far, in this Cleveland series. So if he continues to give us at least 20 plus, we'll be able to be in every game. You know what I mean? So look, I don't have anything else to add. It's another one. It's your boy Dame D. And don't forget to please hit that subscribe button. We are getting close to our 1,000 subscribers, and it's a big goal that we need over here. So look, I am out. It's another one. It's your boy Dame D. We are out. Peace.